Definitely crisis at the City Hall as Sonko's era collapses. Also, Uhuru decries inequality of the EU trade terms and the Chinese firm blocks bid to review the title of the SGR contract. But of course, we'll be focusing mostly on the crisis at City Hall as Sonko era collapses. And perhaps that's where we'll begin our discussion from.
And indeed, so I just want to quickly take a look at that story of the governor of Nairobi. And with all this confusion, I don't know, I'm sure you've had a moment to reflect on what the situation is like. So what should happen? Should that incident, should it happen that tomorrow Senior Magistrate Douglas Ogoti tells Sonko that you cannot access your office until the case is concluded? What should follow?
Well, I think the bottom line is that crime has no expiry date, and this is a lesson that should go to every Kenyan, that whatever amount of time it takes before it catches up with you, it will definitely. That is bit number one. Bit number two is that we are having a trajectory in this country where corruption is being fought. Hitherto, we couldn't see a governor of the stature of Mike Sonko being handcuffed and apprehended in a manner that he was, and dragged to a court of law to answer to charges. So this is a testament that things are now moving in the right direction, as I can see, for this country. We do understand that 30% of our national GDP ends up in the pockets of a few. So if we are going to step up this war, then the country is going to at least save for development projects. We know that much of what we have go to recurrent expenditure, and that does not portend well for a country that ought to have an economic growth. Coming back to Sonko, 19 charges have been pressed against him by the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. Well, as the law clearly states, he still remains innocent.
Right.
Until such a time that a determination shall be made. He saw this coming. There were all indications that he will end up in a court of law. Judge Mumbi Ngugi, whose decision is now heavily relied upon, said that even if you are an elected officer and you are involved in questionable conduct, in line with Chapter 6 of our Constitution on Leadership and Integrity, you must step aside. And stepping aside is not just for fun. It also puts into effect issues of non-interference with the investigative authorities, interference with witnesses, interference with documents that are relied by the DPP in a court of law to prove his or her case. So all this that are happening are meant to safeguard the interest of a litigant, which is just but court officials. Sonko, having seen this coming, I do not know why he chose so deliberately not to appoint a deputy. Perhaps he thought that in the absence of a deputy, all the cases were going to naturally collapse.
Right.
Or rather, there would have been a school of thought that would say, because this is a peculiar case, he's not going to be taken to a court of law and hence step aside as governor. Once a law has been made, and authorities play a very important role in determining a country's future, particularly matters legal, it has to be respected regardless. And I want to believe that tomorrow, as that decision is rendered by Principal Magistrate Ogoti, that he will be barred from accessing his office, that he will be barred from meeting members of his cabinet and engaging with the witnesses, because he knows the witnesses. And the DPP tried to delve onto interference with investigations at that point. And I want to believe that the magistrate did pick up that as an issue.
Right.
So what therefore remains, Beatrice Elashi, the speaker, will just have to take over.
But how so? Before we get to Senator, how so? Because the law talks of a vacancy in the office of the governor and the deputy is not able to act, then the speaker can act for 60 days pending an election.
Right.
But the office will not be vacant. How can she therefore act as governor?
Well, I want to believe that there is no any impending election in Nairobi. Cases touching on criminality of this magnitude, corruption, takes too long to be dispensed with. And once you call an election, then you have already passed a verdict. And this guy, as I want to believe, is still innocent until such a time that the DPP will be able to convince the judge that indeed certain imperfections were carried out in the course of his duties as governor of Nairobi. So you are not going to call an election, you know, preempting a decision of a court of law. Elachi can act as long as this decision still stands before court. Well, you know, there is a vacancy already, quasi-vacancy, because it is not a vacancy as yet. And that is why I'm saying no election can be called at this point in time. Definitely, the case may go 3-4 years, so Elachi may end up, you know, having this lame duck position until the next election.
Right.